the plague that devoured the stars. It began, as most apocalypses do, with whispers. On the distant world of Kitharis, the first cases were dismissed as a local outbreak, a minor infection. The afflicted showed fevers, trembling, and skin lesions that spread like wildfire. The Kytherian Medical Guild had seen many plagues over their long history and had grown confident that their sterilization fields, nanite-based therapies, and genetic cleansing techniques could contain anything. They were wrong. Within weeks, whole cities were silenced. The virus moved faster than light. Not literally, but carried in the breath of starfarers, in the recycled air of cargo freighters, in droplets that clung to hull plating. Its true horror wasn't just its speed, but its adaptability. Every treatment attempted only made it stronger. Every immune response was cataloged and overwritten, until the body itself collapsed into a slurry of corrupted tissue. It was named Thanatheon by the Veari scholars, death eternal. The infection spread system to system, empire to empire. The proud Shara Dominion, whose fleets had ruled 1,000 worlds, lost half its citizens in a single month. The crystalline Kvari, beings who had survived meteoric winters and cosmic radiation storms, shattered like glass before it. Even the machine symbiotes of the Tannic Combine, whose bodies were half metal, fell when the virus learned to hijack their organic processors. The galaxy watched itself burn. By the time humanity's exploratory fleets arrived on the edge of Veari space, the plague had become an apocalypse. Star systems that should have glittered with commerce now drifted in silence. Orbital stations were graveyards of hollow-eyed corpses locked in frozen death. The human relief ship Solace made contact with a Veari quarantine outpost. The aliens were desperate, skeletal things, locked in environmental suits, their translucent skin mottled with the infection. They begged the humans not to disembark, not to breathe the poisoned air. But the humans did. Captain Elena Torres led her team through the infected corridors in nothing more than their standard armor. No filters, no viral suppression fields. They walked among the bodies and the clouds of lingering spores. The Veari watched in horror as the humans touched railings, bent over corpses, and breathed deeply in the contaminated air. Hours passed, then days. The humans did not sicken. The first tests were met with disbelief. Veari scientists drew human blood samples and exposed them to Thanatheon under controlled conditions. Within minutes, human white blood cells devoured the infection like wolves tearing into prey. The virus tried to adapt. Its proteins folded, unfolded, reshaped, but the human immune system shifted faster, responding with a flexibility unseen in any galactic species. One Veari researcher, half delirious from fever, muttered the words that would spread across the stars. They are resistant. The deathworlders are immune. News of humanity's survival tore through the remnants of civilization. Some species wept in relief. Others trembled in suspicion. In the ashes of their fallen empires, many could not believe in coincidence. Humanity had only recently joined the wider galactic community, latecomers, primitive in their technology compared to the ancient powers. And yet, when the galaxy's greatest plague arose, they alone stood untouched. Admiral Core of the Shara Dominion broadcast a message to all open channels, her voice ragged from infection. "Humans, explain yourselves. What weapon have you unleashed upon us?" Captain Torres responded with a mixture of anger and sorrow. "We unleashed nothing. We arrived too late to stop it, but we will not turn away." Her crew spread through the stations, tending to the dying, comforting those too far gone. The aliens could not understand it. To breathe the same air as the infected was madness. To touch them barehanded was suicide. And yet the humans did so with smiles, their skin untouched by lesions, their breath strong. To some, they looked like saviors. To others, like executioners who had unleashed the plague and now walked among their victims, immune by design. Whispers became fear. Fear became paranoia. On the scorched colony of Dravanos, mobs of survivors surrounded a human relief team, accusing them of being architects of Thanatheon. You spread it to weaken us. You wait for us to die, so you can inherit the stars. The humans barely escaped alive. And yet, for every mob, there were worlds where desperate survivors fell to their knees, begging for salvation. They clutched at the hems of human uniforms, desperate for a cure, for an answer. But the humans had none to give. Not yet. What they did have was a truth, cold and sharp as a blade. Humanity had walked through endless plagues before. Earth's history was carved in disease. The Black Death, smallpox, influenza, polio, Ebola. Each wave of death had thinned their species, and each time, those who survived carried within them a legacy of resistance. Over billions of years, their planet had forged immune systems in the crucible of unending microbial warfare. What was Thanatheon but another challenger? In the final days of that first mission, the humans stood on the shattered bridge of the Veari flagship, surrounded by skeletal crew in sealed suits. They breathed freely in the viral haze, their skin glowing with life in contrast to the shriveled forms around them. A Veari elder, his body trembling with the sickness, lifted his gaze to them. "Why you? Why only you?" No human answered. Not because they had no words, but because in their hearts they already knew. The galaxy was discovering what Earth had always known. Humanity survived not by strength, not by wisdom, but by enduring every horror their world had thrown at them. And this time, that endurance might save more than just themselves. The biology of survival. The first Galactic summit after the outbreak was a hollow gathering. Gone were the grand halls of the Concordat Spire, where thousands once debated law and trade. The summit convened instead aboard a quarantine fortress orbiting a dying star, chosen for its isolation. What had once been a council of prosperity now resembled a tribunal of the damned. Delegates wore sealed suits or appeared as holograms, their voices ragged with illness, their eyes sunken. And at the center of it all stood the humans. Dr. Aisha Kamar, chief virologist of the Terran Expeditionary Corps, felt the weight of countless alien stares pressing into her as she displayed her findings. A projection of Thanatheon's structure rotated in the air, a tangled knot of proteins and shifting genetic chains. It looked more like a living storm than a microbe. Every known species, she began, has succumbed to Thanatheon. Its ability to hijack host biology is unparalleled. It adapts faster than any immune response, except ours. Murmurs crackled across the chamber. The Veari delegate's voice trembled. Why? Why only you? Dr. Kamar drew in a steadying breath. Because Earth prepared us. Not intentionally, not kindly, but relentlessly. For 4 billion years, life on our planet has been locked in microbial war. Every breath we take carries billions of bacteria. Every cut risks infection. Plagues wiped out millions of us, time and again. Our immune systems evolved to be adaptive, aggressive, and above all, fast. She showed them ancient Terran records, woodcut drawings of the Black Death, photographs of smallpox victims, grainy images of polio wards. Aliens recoiled, some clutching their suits, as if the images themselves were contagious. "You endured this," the crystalline Kvari envoy rasped. "We survived it," Dr. Kamar corrected softly. "Because if we hadn't, we wouldn't be here." But not all were convinced. High Chancellor Varix of the Shara Dominion leaned forward, his voice brittle. "Or perhaps you engineered it. A plague to weaken us, leaving you alone immune. You come late to the stars, then conveniently become indispensable." How convenient. The accusation struck like a blade. A ripple of agreement moved through the chamber. Fear made easy allies of suspicion. Captain Torres, present in full uniform, slammed her fist onto the table. "We lost billions to our own diseases before we even reached orbit. If we were capable of building something like this, why would we wait until now? Why unleash a weapon that kills the very allies we need to explore the stars?" The tension hung thick. For a moment, it seemed the summit might dissolve into chaos. Then an elderly Tannic combined delegate, his half-metal frame trembling with corrosion, rasped, "Enough. Argue later, if there is a later. If what they claim is true, Their biology is the only reason we still draw breath. From that moment, humanity's role shifted. In secret labs on Earth and aboard hospital ships, human scientists worked tirelessly with alien biologists. They exposed Thanatheon to human antibodies, watching as the virus collapsed under the relentless assault. Plasma infusions from human donors kept alien patients alive, temporarily. But the effect was fleeting. Within weeks, the virus adapted again, clawing back its hold. Dr. Kamar rubbed her temples as she stared at the results. It's like bailing out a sinking ship with a bucket. We need something scalable, something lasting. Gene transfer, suggested Lieutenant Marquez, her assistant. Can we encode their systems with fragments of ours? She hesitated. It was possible. Dangerous, but possible. Yet the implication was staggering. Altering alien biology with human traits. Was it salvation or violation? Meanwhile, the galaxy reacted to humanity's role in wildly different ways. On the planet Drana, survivors built shrines to human figures, painting their faces on walls and calling them immunes, the blessed. Pilgrims flocked to human medics, bowing in reverence. But on fractured Shero worlds, propaganda spread like wildfire. The humans brought Thanatheon. They walk unscathed among our dead. They are not saviors. They are the architects of our ruin. Humanity found itself caught between worship and hatred, both equally dangerous. Despite the fear, human aid continued. Relief fleets moved from system to system, distributing plasma, running field hospitals, comforting the dying. Soldiers became nurses, engineers became blood couriers. Corporal James Harker, stationed on the Veari moon Entris, donated blood 3 times a week until his veins bruised black. Each time he staggered from the chair, weaker, paler, but smiling. If it keeps one more of them alive, he whispered, it's worth it. Stories like his spread, sparking both awe and guilt among alien survivors. They began to see humans not as conspirators, but as allies willing to bleed for strangers. Then came the discovery that shifted everything. In a sealed lab aboard the hospital ship Solace, Dr. Kamar analyzed the virus's latest adaptations. To her astonishment, she found that Thanatheon wasn't just ancient, it was primal. Genetic fragments dated back 3.5 billion years, suggesting it had emerged at the dawn of galactic life itself. It was a fossil predator, a relic that had survived countless extinctions. And somehow, Earth's immune systems had faced and beaten something like it before. The revelation sent shockwaves across the scientific community. If humanity had inherited defenses against Thanatheon's ancestors, then Earth's brutal microbial history wasn't just unusual. It was unique. For the first time, alien scholars began to see Earth not as a backward world, but as a crucible. A death world, yes, but one whose endless plagues had crafted something the galaxy had never known: resistance to the oldest predator of life. When Dr. Kamar presented her findings at the next summit, silence followed. The delegates, frail and dying, stared at the humans not with suspicion, but with something closer to awe. She ended simply, "You asked why we alone are immune. The truth is that we've never known peace. Disease has always hunted us, and so we learned to fight, not with weapons, but with our very blood. Thanatheon is not our first war. It will not be our last, but we can fight it together." The chamber remained silent. Then, slowly, one by one, the delegates rose in acknowledgement. The galaxy had its answer, and humanity had its burden: blood of the deathworlders. The demand for human blood grew faster than ships could carry it. In the first month after the summit, Terran fleets delivered nearly 2 million liters of plasma across the quarantine zones. Every drop was precious. On infected worlds, alien doctors infused it into their patients as though it were liquid gold. And for a brief time, it worked. The fever broke, the lesions receded, and the dying opened their eyes. But within weeks, the virus returned, its endless evolution clawing through borrowed immunity. The survivors fell ill again, and the cycle repeated. Soon, entire empires began to look at humanity with hunger in their eyes. On Earth, Plasma banks overflowed with volunteers. Stadiums and arenas were converted into donation centers. Lines stretched for kilometers. Men and women fainted from repeated withdrawals, only to return the next week with rolled-up sleeves. "We've bled for wars before," said one old veteran on a broadcast, "but this is the first time bleeding saves more than it kills." The world united behind the effort. Nations set aside grudges. Rivalries dissolved, and every transport capable of leaving orbit was pressed into service. The Terran fleet became a lifeline, not of weapons, but of blood. Yet, as humanity gave, alien desperation deepened. In the darkened council chambers of the Shara Dominion, whispers grew into plans. Why rely on Terran generosity? Why beg for their plasma when they could seize it? Some suggested mass abduction, breeding farms, entire colonies of humans harvested like livestock. The Dominion wasn't alone. Other factions, broken by Thanatheon, began to see humanity less as allies and more as resources. Captain Elena Torres saw the shift in every transmission. Delegates who once spoke to her as equals now eyed her as a supplier, a merchant of survival. Her chest tightened each time the requests came. More plasma, faster shipments, higher quotas. She wanted to scream, "We are not an endless well. We are not your cattle." The breaking point came on the mining world of Zevra. The colony's governor, his people dying in droves, intercepted a Terran hospital ship. He demanded its human crew disembark and donate indefinitely. When the captain refused, Zevra militia stormed the vessel, taking 20 humans hostage. Word reached Torres aboard the Solace within hours. She dispatched Marines, and the rescue was swift, bloody, and decisive. The Zevra militia fell beneath disciplined fire, their governor dragged from his throne in chains. The humans freed their own, but not without cost. For it had already been drained near to death, their veins collapsing, their bodies little more than husks. When the galaxy heard of it, a line had been crossed. "Is this how you thank us?" Torres demanded at the next summit. Her voice shook with fury, echoing across the chamber. "We bleed ourselves dry for you, and you repay us with chains? We're not slaves. We are not resources. We are people." Silence followed. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. Others looked away in shame. And then, slowly, the tide began to turn. The Tannic Combine proposed a formal protection accord. No human could be taken, enslaved, or forced to donate. Any empire that broke the rule would be cut off from aid. For once, the galaxy agreed. It wasn't morality. It was pragmatism. Without humans, there was no survival. Still, plasma alone could not win the war. Dr. Aisha Kamar worked tirelessly in her labs, searching for a permanent solution. Her latest idea was audacious, synthesizing a hybrid therapy, grafting fragments of the human immune system into alien biology. Not a cure, but a borrowed shield. It would not make aliens truly immune, but it could give them time, days, weeks, perhaps months, before Thanatheon adapted. Enough to stabilize, enough to build. But the process required human blood at industrial scale. She stared at the figures late into the night, exhaustion hollowing her eyes. "If we push this far, we'll break our own people," she whispered. Lieutenant Marquez, standing at her side, said softly, "Maybe we already have. But what choice do we have left?" Back on Earth, the cost was rising. Donation lines grew shorter. Hospitals overflowed with exhausted volunteers suffering anemia, organ stress, and collapsed veins. Families wept as fathers, mothers, and children gave until their bodies failed. And yet they kept coming. One woman, a schoolteacher named Clara Ruiz, collapsed after her sixth donation in 2 weeks. As medics carried her away, she whispered, "Tell them, it's okay, as long as it saves someone out there." Her words spread like wildfire across human networks, then across alien channels. For the first time, many civilizations saw the cost of human sacrifice not as a rumor, but as reality. They realized these deathworlders were not immortal. They were bleeding themselves dry to save the galaxy. It was then that the kidnapping happened. A fractured empire, the Tazrathi, launched a raid on a Terran convoy. They captured over 100 humans, planning to force them into permanent donation camps. But this time, humanity did not simply rescue their own. They struck back. The Terran fleet descended on the Tazrathi strongholds, dismantling defenses with surgical precision. Marines stormed their prisons, tearing down walls, freeing captives, and leaving a single message carved into the ruins. We give freely. Take from us by force, and you will pay in blood. That act changed everything. No longer were humans seen as victims or saviors. They were guardians of their own destiny. They would bleed for the galaxy, yes, but only by choice. And in the shadows of hospital wards and shattered colonies, Thanatheon continued to mutate, creeping closer and closer to the one frontier it had never crossed: human flesh. The war was not over. It was only changing. The last immune. At first, it was only whispers. A handful of human medics reporting fatigue beyond normal. A soldier coughing in a plasma ward. A nurse with a fever that didn't fade. Then the test came back. Thanatheon had changed. It had taken months of relentless adaptation, burning through countless alien hosts. But at last, the ancient virus had breached the unthinkable. It had begun to infect humans. Slowly, imperfectly, but undeniably. The final wall was cracking. Dr. Aisha Kamar stared at the data in disbelief. The charts showed human lymphocytes slowing, failing. The once invincible cells were falling in skirmishes against the new strain. "It shouldn't be possible," whispered Lieutenant Marquez, peering over her shoulder. "It wasn't," Kamar replied. Her voice was hollow. "Not until we forced it. By flooding the galaxy with our blood, by giving it endless opportunities to study us, we taught it how." For the first time since the outbreak began, fear touched the humans themselves. If they fell, the galaxy fell with them. On Earth, panic threatened to bloom. Families who had given until their veins collapsed now asked, was it for nothing? News outlets blared with speculation, some accusing the Terran fleet of betrayal, others demanding humanity withdraw from the galaxy's plague wars before they destroyed themselves. But Captain Elena Torres refused to spare. Standing before her exhausted crew aboard the Solace, she spoke firmly. "We've survived every plague our world ever threw at us. This one will be no different. Humanity adapts. That's what we do. And now, so must the galaxy." Her words steadied them. Yet all knew this fight would not be won with courage alone. Dr. Kamar's breakthrough came at the edge of collapse. For weeks, she had worked without rest, chasing fragments of hope through microscopes and sequencers. Then, staring at the tangled genome of the mutated Thanatheon, she saw it: a weakness. The virus thrived by rewriting hosts to suit itself. But in humans, the process was met with countermutations, microadaptations firing constantly, reshaping proteins faster than the virus could keep pace. That was why humanity endured where others failed. Not immunity, not invulnerability, adaptability. "What if," she whispered, "we give that gift to them?" Marquez frowned. "You mean, make aliens part human? Not in mind, not in form, in code." She tapped the display. "We build a living therapy. Nanobiotics seeded with human immune blueprints. A graft, a second skin of adaptability. They won't be us, but they'll survive like us." It was dangerous. It was radical. It was the only chance. The summit was chaos when Kamar presented her plan. "You want to infect us with your biology?" roared Chancellor Varix, his suit trembling with rage. "You would turn us into deathworlders?" Others murmured fearfully. To alter their very essence was unthinkable. It was cultural death. Torres rose, her voice cutting through the din. "This isn't conquest. It's survival. If you refuse, Thanatheon will erase you. If you accept, you live. Choose." The chamber seethed with argument. Some stormed out, unwilling to surrender their purity. Others bowed their heads, desperate enough to grasp any hope. In the end, necessity triumphed. Entire civilizations volunteered. They lined up at Terran clinics, their veins filled not with plasma, but with engineered nanobiotics carrying fragments of humanity's immune code. The first patients shivered, convulsed, and for a moment it seemed the gamble had failed. But then the fevers broke. The lesions healed. Where once Thanatheon had surged unchecked, it now faltered, meeting resistance it could not outpace. The galaxy had been given the fire of Earth. The cost, however, was heavy. Some species resisted until the end, clinging to pride, and were extinguished. Others survived, but changed, no longer entirely themselves, forever carrying a whisper of humanity in their blood. And among humans, the toll was staggering. Thousands had died from exhaustion, from overdonation, from viral breakthroughs before the therapy stabilized. The streets of Earth were lined with memorials, names etched into steel and stone. But the galaxy endured. Months later, Captain Torres walked the silent gardens of a Veari sanctuary world. The air was heavy with the perfume of alien flowers, yet safe to breathe. Children, human and alien alike, played under the suns, laughter ringing where once there had only been coughing. A Veari elder approached, his once fevered skin now clear. He bowed deeply. "Your people saved us. You shared your strength, your blood, even your essence. Why? Why risk extinction for strangers?" Torres looked at the children, her face softening. "Because we know what it's like to face death alone," she said quietly. "Because every plague on Earth taught us one thing. Survival is never just for yourself. It's for the ones beside you." In the years that followed, Thanatheon became a story, a scar, a warning. The galaxy recovered, slower than it fell, rebuilding from ashes. And wherever survivors gathered, they carried a piece of Earth within them. Not domination, not empire, but survival through shared struggle. Humanity had not conquered the stars with weapons or fleets. They had not ruled with fear. They had bled, adapted, and given freely until the galaxy itself carried their legacy. On the 10th anniversary of the plague's end, a monument was unveiled on Earth, a sculpture of intertwined hands, human, alien, crystalline, metallic, all reaching upward together. The inscription read, "In blood, we became one. In survival, we found hope." And beneath it, smaller, almost hidden, only humans were resistant. But together, all became survivors.